The latest installment in this beloved franchise manages to one-up everything that makes John Wick, John Wick. As a movie, it does suffer a bit from a very long runtime, but thankfully, it uses it well. Mostly, adding another memorable chapter to this ever-growing, ever-expansive, ever-exciting world. What's going on YouTube? My name is Jay Lee, and I like a lot of stuff. Today I'm talking about John Wick Chapter 4. I'm gonna come right out and say it that this movie is a contender for my favorite John Wick film. I don't think it quite eclipses the magic of the original, but it's so damn good and so well made that I'm still recovering from the experience almost a week later. With a very healthy Rotten Tomatoes score of 94% positive reviews, and an audience score echoing that same praise, this movie, to date, is the highest rated John Wick movie, and with very good reason. This movie goes long and hard. And it's probably the most, well, everything in the series. It has the most story, the most crazy gunplay and jujitsu choreography. It has the most car carnage and locations in which the carnage ensues. It surprisingly has the most heart as well. I mean, John's heart died in the first film, so the heartfelt moments actually come from some of the many awesome new side characters who freaking rock, by the way, except this guy. I've heard a lot of people praise Shamir Anderson for his performance, but I actually thought he kinda sucked. Not his acting ability, I just didn't buy him as this badass elite tracker character. Most scenarios have him showing up where John is, looking kind of surprised to be there. Oh, you know what it is? The guy just has too nice guy of a face, and it felt out of place next to a scenery-chewing Scott Adkins in a fat suit. So funny, by the way. Speaking of Adkins, praise for the supporting cast could probably take up this whole video, to be honest. This movie is stacked top to bottom. We get the return of the intangible, the ineffable.
I'm not effable?
Lawrence Fishburne, the ever-refined and genteel Ian McShane as Winston, the late Lance Riddick as fan-favorite concierge Sharon, rest in peace. However, it's the newcomers who not only bring the star power, but the depth of emotion. We have Hiroyuki Sanada as part of the Osakan Continental, and Donnie freaking Yen in a John Wick movie. I recently read an article that detailed the creative process behind Yen's character Kane in the movie, and how he had a pretty significant hand in shaping this character from kind of a stereotypical Asian baddie into more of a mirror to Keanu's John Wick. Some big influences for Yen's portrayal came from a skinny tie and suit-clad Bruce Lee, and Chow Yun-fat as seen in old John Woo movies. Donnie Yen and Hiroyuki Sanada are royalty in Asian cinema and truly add a lot to every project they're in. And here, they are in a John Wick movie where as an audience we get to see them clash swords, and it is glorious. Anyways, I don't want to wander too far into spoiler territory, so I'm going to shift over to another scene stealer in Bill Skarsgård, who continues to reinvent himself as the creepy antagonist character. Here he adopts a French accent that's so much more subtle and menacing than what you would expect a French-speaking bad guy to sound like.
I don't care! I'm not a fucking chemistry teacher, idiot!
He plays the cocky prick Marquis de Gramont to perfection. The quintessential bad guy you just love to hate. Okay, on to the rest of the movie. It is great, like really freaking great, and I love so much of it. But I will say that although the film does its best to justify the sub 3 hour length, some of it does feel a bit drawn out. And this actually includes some of the painstakingly elaborate action sequences. There's a short segment at the beginning that felt a bit out of place, and a car chase around the Arc de Triomphe that I thought went on a bit too long. Also, as fun as it was to watch Scott Adkins in a fat suit throwing hook kicks, his scene was probably my least favorite fight in the movie. The newly crowned best action sequence in the whole damn series, however, happens relatively early in the movie, and I was elated to have watched that on the big screen. The filmmakers continue to outdo themselves with the gunplay and fight choreography. The visual style of that sequence is especially stunning given the futuristic neon aesthetic of Japan, and was extremely well shot with the trademark long takes and wide shots to really let the action play out. There's also an extremely creative overhead shot later in the film that reminded me of some old school 3/4 top-down action games, like Metal Gear Solid, or even the recent John Wick Hex game. To my knowledge, I honestly don't know if Hollywood's done that kind of shot before, since it would require them to build a pretty elaborate ceilingless set, which they obviously did for this movie. It blew my freaking mind when the camera switched to that top-down view, leaving my mouth agape as I watched the scene play out. On the point of video game influences, the structure of the movie also feels a bit video gamey in the sense that it's a bit RPG-like when John heads to a destination, only to realize he's unable to complete the task unless he first rectifies another detail somewhere else, and so on. It's an effective device to set up action sequences, but because of the time-sensitive nature of the plot, I was growing pretty wary of all the detours he was being forced to take. Now that I know how the film ends, I think I'm going to be able to rewatch it and enjoy all of it without feeling anxious or concerned with how they were going to wrap things up. Wherever they decided to take take the franchise from here is going to be fascinating, seeing that the amount of sheer epicness of this film brings it to endgame levels of hype, and I don't think any John Wick fan is going to walk away from this one feeling disappointed. John Wick Chapter 4 gets a 9.5 out of 10 from me. As someone who's trained with nunchucks since childhood, I'm actually really glad they didn't go all Bruce Lee when John uses them in the epic aforementioned fight scene. Nunchucks are hard to use, as seen in some of the behind the scenes frustrations, but I'm sure they could have copy and pasted some Enter the Dragon style sequences. Instead, they go for a very efficient, very brutal, and much less showy manner of utilizing nunchucks in the fight. I respect it. Anyways, thanks for stopping by for another review. I hope you come back soon to catch my thoughts on all the stuff I haven't talked about yet.